hello to you guys. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time. I'm really excited. The War Within is so soon. So being able to fit in this interview right before then is really exciting. I'm Annie, or also known as AnnieFuchsia, and I've played World of Warcraft for a very long time at this point and have been streaming World of Warcraft or made content for the game since 2014, 15, something like that. So it's been a while. I've been here for a while. And oh, that's my cat making an appearance. Do you guys mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. My name is Morgan Day. I am the Associate Game Director on The War Within. I have been working on WoW for quite a while, I think almost 18 years now. So I also have been right there with you in this for a while.
I'm Tina Wang. I'm Associate Art Director on The War Within, and I've been working on the team for maybe about 14 years now, and been playing since beta, and so yeah, getting to work on the game that enjoyed playing since the beginning has been very awesome, and I really can't believe it's been that long, honestly.
Yeah, that's crazy. Tina as well with the 14 years, because obviously I've seen you guys do stuff for World of Warcraft for a long time now, but it's still crazy to think when you actually put the years in numbers. Let's hop into things. So I wanted to today put a little bit of a focus on warbands as a main focus, talking about account-wide things. So currently on the main character selection screen, we can favorite 4 characters for our warband. And my first question is, are you planning to expand this number?
So I guess just to start off, so again, the Warband screen, this is like a brand new thing. And so we're really still trying to feel out, okay, what are all the pieces of Warbands that we want to adjust, based on all the player feedback. We're excited that there is player interest in customizing that login screen. Initially we're like, well, I don't know, will players even care about this screen at all? So there'll be discussions, but right now, there aren't any plans to go beyond 4 at this point. But yeah, we talk about a lot of things related to the customization of that screen.
Yeah, we tried a couple different options there. Ultimately, we have to account for what's the worst case scenario with how much space a character can take up. And then kind of work our way backwards from there. So there's some larger character models in our game, right? Who have pets that might show up there. So that's definitely something that, we mostly were focusing on as we were working on the warband screen and, how many characters can fit in this space.
Yeah, that one we really wanted to create a really strong baseline that worked well for multiple scenarios, right? So 4 Tauren hunters, we're like, that was our worst case scenario with testing. But then if we do end up customizing screens and maybe we end up, maybe if we place them farther apart from each other, then maybe that gives us more options because you already have that baseline available to you if you want to see your set, displayed optimally. We'll see.
All right. Well, I like that answer because it's true with how it is now. Space might be a big question mark for certain combinations, but considering potential, different distances in the back and stuff, yeah, that's good to hear. Further with the selection screen, so currently we have the favorite list, which is the main warband list of 4 characters. Have you guys considered adding multiple custom lists so we can group our characters in a way? For example, a group where I put in all my warlocks in.
We know that aspect of, players logging in and suddenly all of their characters are all in one giant list has been a pain point, like a quality of life thing. So we have discussed it. Yeah. Personally, many of my characters have the same name, so it's been a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we've heard a lot of feedback on, especially initially with the launch of Warbands and the War Within and the pre-patches. People who have been asking for like filters or other ways to kind of like find specific characters there. So we've definitely heard that feedback. And, much like a lot of our, awesome features we've been adding, like and Tina mentioned a minute ago, like this is just the beginning, right? Like there's plenty of other things that we are looking forward to, adding or revisiting, especially based on player feedback in future updates. And really what we're seeing right now is just it's just the start.
Okay, awesome. Well, you guys are kind of covering some of my other questions as well because like you said, I was going to ask, are you considering other kinds of filters or sorting, perhaps by server? Because for like Tina said as well, for me too, I have many characters with the same name, and sometimes it can be a bit difficult to realize, okay, which character is from what server? I'm looking for this character from this server, but where are they? So yeah, that's great to hear. I think more sorting and filtering is definitely needed. So that's awesome.
Yeah, there's some other features that we want to work on. Like, I saw a post the other day where someone was like, "How does the gear boost work? I can't get this character says it can gear boost, but I can't, make it happen." And it's because that character wasn't technically on the realm that they had selected at the character select screen, so they couldn't push the
Oh,
button. So there's issues like that we're definitely, listening to player feedback and working to resolve as we move forward.
that's good to know. I actually didn't realize that. That's interesting.
It's just such a very, very large technological investment. And so some things have to be a multi-part situation to get to that, maybe final state that we're happy with.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. I always wanted everything to be account wide. I did not expect something like Warbands, I have to say. Like, I'm so happy with Warbands. So I'm really excited to even have it as it is, but also to hear about future additions as well. And speaking of another thing, which might maybe tie into this a little bit, professions and gold not being visible if you haven't picked that server. Is that something also that you have realized? So if I pick a specific server, then the characters on that server, when I hover over them, I can see the gold and stuff. But the characters which are not on that selected realm, it doesn't show the gold that they're carrying.
Yeah, that is something that you should be able to see once you're in game, I believe, right? Like, if you want to transfer currencies.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, like I mentioned, at the character select screen in particular, like
Hmm.
Tina said, that's just such a major shift in how the architecture of the game was built with server. We have a lot of servers, and those
Hmm.
servers don't really talk to each other at that point in the game, right? Because you're not technically in the game yet. So that means there's different systems under the hood that are kind of sharing information. And the game wasn't really developed with the necessity to know how much gold you have at that screen. So that's something that we wanted to kind of release all the awesome things that come with warbands and not, hold the whole thing back, because there's some things like you just mentioned that we would like to fix, but weren't able to quite get it out with the launch of War Within. But again, that's something that we recognize this is an ongoing, evergreen feature, and we're going to continue to add new updates and increase, add quality of life changes and stuff like that as we go.
Awesome. All right, less technical things and a bit more visual or future things. I heard you guys are indeed planning to add more ways to customize our warband backgrounds. I think I saw a comment somewhere about potential ways to unlock them in the future. I was wondering if the specific requirements for unlocking these will all be straightforward and easy to obtain for anyone, or if you're planning to maybe have some of them be behind some kind of challenging achievement. For example, getting cutting edge in PvE or gladiator in PvP, if these kind of achievements would potentially unlock unique backgrounds.
So let's see. Maureen, feel free to jump in because I'm not the rewards designer, but something that is important to us philosophically is seeing what players are interested in, right? Because for instance, if we want to be able to, we want to design a bunch of, if we were to design screens and put them out there, we want to see like the amount of player interest in general before we end up targeting a very small niche of that player base. So I think it's just that we'll see, and we'll see what players think.
That's fair. No,
I
that makes sense.
definitely, am curious to hear if there is an interest for that. I know people have really been enjoying kind of like that camp screen and coming up with thematics of all, hey, I've got my 4 Death Knights and they're all themed like the different horsemen of the apocalypse or whatever. And, I've seen a couple of photoshops of people who would do that and then have the Death Knights in Acaris or something like that. So, based on, community reception so far, it seems like something that could be fun for us to explore in the future. But again, I'd love to hear maybe from your community or others as well. Like, hey, is that something that would be fun for you all?
Yeah, I think when we were discussing it, we were speculating whether the amount of interest, because, for instance, this would be the first customization that is not something that other people can actually see in game, right? Unlike a transmog or mount. So, yeah, very, again, sorry, just to emphasize, like, we really want to hear what players think.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's kind of like diving into the water when you're just first baby steps, touching the waters and see how it feels, and then accordingly. Makes sense. On the topic of Warband characters in general, like you mentioned with having the 4 Death Knights in a specific theme, any thoughts on using your Warband for something in game, for example, in follower dungeons?
That is a really cool idea. I have heard that before as well. Um, Follower dungeons are something that we're really excited about, right? We added those in Dragonflight, and we have them at the launch of War Within, which has enabled us to do some really cool things. Like we actually have, I want to say for the first time, a dungeon that is essentially part of the leveling up campaign. But because you don't have to, queue for a random dungeon, you can just kind of do it by yourself with your followers. We thought that that was something that was a cool opportunity to kind of change to leverage that system and let players experience that dungeon even in the level up campaign. I've definitely had the same thought, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like, if I have a couple different characters that I've also leveled up, like, can I bring them in there with me and maybe even get some experience for them or something? Like, that'd be kind of neat. We've definitely discussed that, and is potentially, I would say never, but it's not currently planned for the, especially certainly not for the launch of War Within, but I wouldn't expect it to be, on the heels of launch either. But it's for sure a really cool idea and something we've heard before.
It's true, like you say, sometimes when we have these characters, it's nice to put them in the game. And then you gave me an idea, being able to gain XP on these other characters at the same time. Like that's really smart too. I like that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the Warband Bank. So I noticed the gold in the Warband Bank needs to be manually withdrawn and deposited, even if it's for Warband upgrades, while I noticed that crafting materials are automatically withdrawn. Is there a reason that gold isn't?
That's a great question. I would have to follow up with the team. Ultimately, one of the main goals that we had was to just reduce the amount of friction for transferring, any warband currency. And I feel like the team really, they were like focusing on that experience of let's make sure just currency transfers are as, low friction as possible. And gold is a currency. So as long as we achieve that goal, then we should be in pretty good shape with gold. But I do understand your point there where yes, gold is a currency, but it's also kind of its own special snowflake. I have seen a lot of people who have kind of been consolidating their gold into one character and then just transferring as they need, just to make that easier. So yeah, like I mentioned, that's definitely something that we wanted to make sure, especially with the initial launch, that we just focused on any currency should be as low friction as possible. And then if we need to kind of expand those systems from there, or kind of create one-off solutions for things that might be a bit more common, we would for sure look into that. I mean, I know something that we immediately heard feedback on that we started to discuss and are already exploring options is, if a character doesn't have any of the currency, they can't actually select it to transfer it. And we're like, oh no, that's a great point. And that's an edge case we missed, but it's an important one, right? Like, hey, if I don't have any honor, do I have to go run a battleground before I can like transfer honor onto this character? That's not exactly the experience we wanted to create. So we're already talking about things like that, which would, frankly, something like that for me would be a bit higher priority than making gold kind of be an exception to how currencies work. I'd rather try to solve some of those edge cases that people are running to more frequently.
Yeah, that makes sense. Transferring currency between alts. I was wondering if you're planning to, at least in the short run, consider some kind of transfer all button. So, for example, when I was doing the pre-patch event, I had currencies on many characters, and I wanted all of them to just go onto one character to, spend all the currency I needed for the transmog, and I'd have to transfer from each character one at a time instead of having like a transfer from all the alts to this character.
The vacuum button.
Yeah.
Give me all of it.
Give everything.
I hadn't heard that one. That's a great idea, though. I mean, we have like a running list of kind of like, update ideas and improvements that we've kind of been building and working on prioritizing. So that's a cool one. I hadn't heard that one, but I do like that idea.
Probably only a problem for people who run a lot of characters, and I do, so I had to manually do it. At least one thing that was nice was if I just, I don't have to type the exact number, I can just type 99999, and when I press this accept, it puts in the correct number for me, so that's pretty convenient, because there's no max button, but if you just write 999, that works, so that's nice.
That's a good tip.
On the topic of currencies in general, is there kind of future thinking that you want to make the currencies truly account-wide, so there's no transferring between characters and it's just simply an account currency? Like, this is how much your account has, doesn't matter where you log in?
I'd have to ask the team. Honestly, I'm not sure of the specifics of that. I know something that we did discuss recently, and again, this goes into that like quality of life improvements was, when I mouse over currency, it would be awesome to be able to see like a total. Like, hey,
Mm.
this character I'm looking at has, 3,000, but across all my characters, I have 10,000 or something. And that would be probably a much easier change to make than something like you're discussing. Like we've said it a couple times now, but I can't understate, the challenge that the team undertook to make these changes. And there are definitely some things that we knew would be more difficult than others, and currencies especially, and along with achievements were two of the harder ones to kind of like um, get those changes in and make sure that that's a good experience for the player. Um, but yeah, I think things like being able to more quickly see, here's my grand total across all my accounts would be something that we could make that change, shortly after launch, where a truly account-wide currency might require a much larger undertaking than something like that.
It's really difficult too, right? Because it's what are players' expectations when they go into it? Because currency has behaved in a certain way for so long. We also have cases of, oh, we don't want people accidentally spending gold or currency that they didn't intend to, or making, yeah. So figuring out like how these systems that work with each other is what we're, I think if, like, as players get used to warbands and then we shift to this, then maybe future steps are something that can come later.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm honestly, in terms of account wide, if we go back a few years, didn't expect anything to ever become account wide, not truly. So even having Warband is amazing, and having the ability to transfer between the characters is really nice too. It's just, I guess, the wishful thinking or the ideas of, oh, what about this? I guess when you guys give us a little bit of cake, then we want to have a big cake. If you put it like that. This is a little bit of a niche question, which only people who have 2 World of Warcraft accounts would ever experience. But when you log in for the first time into an account, that account kind of owns the Warband bank, keeps it hostage. So your second account can't access it, even if it's not using it. So the only way for the second account to access would be for both accounts to log out, and then the second account logs in first. Very niche situation, but is that something that you're maybe planning to make more seamless? Maybe as an unexpected result of something else? I think Pet Battles in the past has worked in a similar way.
Yeah, that was something that, like you said, it's a little edge casey, but something that we had to account for. And ultimately, the experience that you are seeing, this is very, kind of specific, but it's like a security issue, right? Like, as you can imagine, as you have something like a warband bank, like transferring currencies, um, dupes were a huge concern, right?
Mm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
name something in an MMO that is more iconic, which is banks or guild banks and dupes, right? And in this case, it's an account-wide bank. So really that change was put in place to kind of make sure that the security of the currencies and these things that are really valuable, right? Like if there was a dupe and WoW, that would be a huge problem. Like the gold economy would have major issues. So ultimately, in some cases like this one, we had to kind of err on the side of security versus the user experience, given, like you mentioned, it is a bit more of a niche situation where something like a gold dupe would have a very large impact on a much broader portion of the player base. That's not to say that isn't something that we couldn't look at improving in the future, but again, out the gates, we leaned on the side of like, hey, let's make sure that this is secure and we're not going to add any kind of bad exploits or something as we're improving the player experience here.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It is a very niche situation. It affects very few players, and having such a big risk, I can understand that. I guess the good thing is we haven't actually heard of any big dupe situations in WoW for a very long time now, and these security measures in place is probably, a big part of the reason. So that makes sense. Since warbands and also cross-server guilds have been sort of blurring the divide between servers, any possibility or plans of cross-server craft orders?
Am I crazy? Did we not do that? So maybe what I'm thinking of is cross-server guild crafting orders, because that
Yes.
I believe will be there for War Within, and that
Yes.
was something that we wanted to make sure, hey, if we're gonna have cross-server guilds, guild crafting orders are really popular, so we wanted to make sure that was available. And I don't remember if we expanded that to um, all crafting orders. But I know for sure we got the cross-server guild ones covered because we wanted to make sure that that crossover guild felt like a unit that wasn't in any kind of disadvantage for having players on different guilds servers. Sorry, I'll have to follow up on that one though. But
Yeah.
if we have it functioning for guilds, that's something that we would want to talk about for cross server as well. I know we've slowly been making changes to the auction house, right? Like
Hmm.
commodities became cross server, although there aren't all things cross server. So that's definitely something that, slowly concept of servers is something that has changed over time, and that's something that we're continuing moving in that direction for sure.
Yeah, because I noticed, because I tried it myself, and if you're in the same guild, you do indeed pick up the crafting orders. But if you're not part of the same guild, then you don't see it. Maybe it wouldn't affect everyone or too many people, but sometimes the economies of less active servers becomes kind of crazy, especially if you have a specific, like the necklace for Drew crafting in Dragonflight. Some patterns become really rare, and the economy goes kind of crazy over it. So it's interesting from a game economy point of view to know if crafting orders would become region wide or if they would stay server wide. I have one final question. With warbands now making all our teleport unlocks available on other characters, thank you by the way, any thought to add those teleports to the map UI for dungeons?
Are you referring to the ones you unlock when you do like a +20?
Yes.
Oh, that's a cool idea. Um, I don't, sorry, maybe Morgan I haven't heard of any specific plans to that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to take that to our UI leads to ask them, like, hey, this is an interesting idea. Ultimately, I think that's something that, we feel like teleports or something. Like, a question for you: would you expect a mage to be able to click on the map to port around too, right? Versus the fantasy of, hey, this is me. I have learned this spell. This character or this band has learned this spell, and I am using a cool like magical portal to get there. Versus clicking something on the UI map almost feels like a system that's more baked into the baseline game. It doesn't feel as fantasy forward as something as just like a portal out of my spell book. So often a lot of these choices are made just from the pure perspective of like, hey, what's the fantasy that we want to try to achieve here? First and foremost, we always feel like we're an RPG. We like to make it feel like, you are living in a world that is high fantasy and has all kinds of fun magic. But there are also times where, yeah, sometimes this is a quality of life feature that should be more baked into an element in the UI. And over time, I've learned to never say never with WoW. The game has evolved and changed a lot over time. MMOs looked a lot different 20 years ago than they
Hmm.
do today. There's a lot of choices that we have made and kind of are still in the game that were decisions that were made 20 years ago versus things that, as we see the modern games industry move forward, and we want to make sure that while we stay true to our roots, we're also making sure that there aren't elements of MMOs or other modern RPGs that we shouldn't be adopting.
It's interesting you say that, because when you asked me if mages should be able to do that, I'm like, no. Because, yeah, it does kind of remove the. I guess it is a fancy aspect. It's something about it that makes it feel more non immersive.
Yeah, we do have the portal room, right, that we started to integrate, and
Hmm.
we've actually continued to leverage the portal room from Dawn of the Infinite in the War Within, and you've got your little buddy in the town that will send you to the portal room so that you can get kind of shortcuts to all the different dungeons. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, Tina might be able to speak to this, and I know we don't have much time, but feeling like the world is a cohesive space and that you're traveling through it and you understand kind of the scale and depth of the world that is World of Warcraft, is an important part of all of our decisions. One of our
Hmm.
major design principles and philosophies on the game is the world is the star, right? We want you to feel like you're living in this space and you're part of a living, breathing world. I've said world way too many times. It's hard when your game is World of Warcraft. And yeah, that's always something that we want to make sure that is front of mind and a goal of ours, and we're not really like kind of eroding that value of ours.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I need to go back to my sketchbook on that one and need a new idea for portals. Teleporting to them, maybe not so good. Now thinking about mage teleports. That was all my questions, perfectly on time. Maybe a quick question: what are you mostly looking forward to?
Ooh, I think for me, I mean, I'm looking forward to players getting to check out the world because that's one of the biggest stars of World of Warcraft. And with War Within, which is like the beginning of the saga, we really created some unique environments, and there's a lot of mysteries in the depths of Azeroth. So yeah, really excited for players to check that out.
I'm really excited about the rated Battleground Blitz because I love PvP and I've always loved Battlegrounds. I enjoyed Solo Shuffle, but I've always enjoyed Battlegrounds more than arenas, so I'm really excited for that one.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time. Looking forward to the War Within. Thank you guys for all the work that you've put into it.
Have a good
Thanks
one.
so much. Nice chatting with you. Bye.
Yeah, bye bye.